I was very impressed with Walk on Water. I saw it late last night, and I was laughing and just enjoying the film. You know, the process of the film. It's surprising. It's very entertaining. I think as a gay man, it's quite sexy. We'll talk a little bit about your cast, but where does the idea come from? I was intrigued by this idea that really throws Israelis, Arabs, and Germans together in one stew pot of a thriller movie that has some very engaging elements to it. Talk a little bit. I know you wrote it with your lover, partner, Gal. Let's talk. Let's talk a little bit about where the idea from this comes from, because I think it's really carried out very nicely.
Well, do you want me to hold this? Okay. Well, it started out with a story I heard from my psychologist, actually. A story, which was a story about another patient of his. It's a story that he, wrote in the psychoanalytical magazine in Israel. A story of a Mossad agent who comes home one day from like a week abroad doing what they do, and he calls out his wife's name. Can't find her in their apartment, walks into their washroom, finds her hanging from the ceiling. She committed suicide. She leaves a note describing how disgusting and terrible and unbearable life has become with him being the man that he is. And he represses that immediately. And just like the character in our film, goes back, to the Mossad and prepares for his next mission, shooting and preparing and whatever. But slowly, he starts cracking up, and all these anxiety attacks start coming. And he goes to therapy, decides to leave the Mossad, goes to Tel Aviv University, enrolls in Tel Aviv University, studies all kinds of things you would not imagine a man like him studying, like philosophy and history and art and literature. And then meets this young man in his class, which is a different generation from him and a different kind of man, falls in love with him, and it becomes this full-fledged affair between these two men. And my psychiatrist is writing that he doesn't know if this is a good thing that's happening or a bad thing, or what's going on. But he realized that this man, his patient, is changing in amazing ways. He's doing things he's never done before. He's experiencing emotions he's never experienced before, and so on and so on. And after half a year of this relationship going on, it fades out. He meets, the patient, our character, meets the lover's sister, falls in love with her, and starts a new family with her. Now, I heard that story, it blew my mind away. I realized exactly what this man was going through and why he needed to go through this. And, the psyche of this Israeli macho Mossad agent. And, it's a wonderful story. I thought that would be a wonderful starting point. And then, just because, I'm obsessed by Israeli masculinity and how we came to be this man that we are, or we're all supposed to be. And that, of course, takes you to the Holocaust, and you realize that our parents, grandparents came to Israel, started this stage for the Jewish people, and created this new kind of man that's supposed to be like this tough, macho warrior. And on the one hand, we did wonderful things, or they did wonderful things for Israel and whatever. On the other hand, this man became this kind of tough, emotional cripple, so I said, okay, let's work with that. Let's confront this macho Mossad agent with a man who is like the same species as he is, but he's so completely different. He's on the one hand, he's the grandson of a famous Nazi, and our character is the son of Holocaust survivors, and he's gay, which is of course very threatening and very difficult for our character to handle. And let's put these two men, metaphorically speaking, let's put these two men in one room and have them confront with each other and have them deal with each other, and let's see what happens. Yeah.
You decided not to make them lovers. Was there a particular reason for that? Let's talk about that.
Well, I was kind of asking that same question myself. I was saying, am I like trying to please straight audiences? Am I trying to be more commercial or whatever? And I said, I don't think that's the case at all. I can't be accused of someone who's not shown, gay love, gay sex on the screen or on, in television in Israel. I didn't really think about it a lot. It somehow kind of was felt right not to go there and not to take all the focus to that kind of sexual maybe part of it, and because that would kind of, I think, would confuse everyone, not only straight people, would confuse gay people as well. Like, what is going on? Is he becoming gay? Is he gay? You know, all these questions that I said, I try, let's talk about the emotional aspect of it. Let's talk about the psychological aspects of things that can have, of course, and it's wonderful as far as I'm concerned, if they have a physical, you know, side to them. But I said that could confuse people, and I didn't want, you know, them to go there, you know, that. But then again, you know, when I showed the script to my producer, not Gal, the other producer, who's straight, and he read the script, and he was the only one to say the idea of the script, which is a straight man needs a gay friend or a gay person with him to change him and make him a better man, is something that I, meaning the producer, am fascinated by, and I want to do this film. So I hugged him and I said, "You're going to do this film. We'll do this film together." Wonderful. I mean, I was so happy with his, you know, understanding of like the deeper essence of the story and of the film.
One of the fascinating things, those American audiences who don't know that much about the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency, it seems to be very efficient. I mean, just the wiretap, he bugs the room of the sister and the German guy that he's posing as a tourist agent, and he bugs their room, and the conversations are very efficiently and digitally recorded, and every single thing about the Mossad seems to be very. I mean, one is impressed. Is a lot of that based on life, real life knowledge?
Well, you know, growing up in Israel, you know, I got this phone call from the Mossad when I was when I was 18, I think. You know, hello, we're calling from, you know. So at that time they didn't call themselves the Mossad, whatever. You know, but do you want to come meet us, or are you willing to meet us, and whatever. So that it's one of those things that as an Israeli, you know, you have, you know, kind of in your awareness all the time. And some of my best friends were involved with the Mossad in some way, matter, or form. So I talked to them a lot, and I try to research, you know, the whole subject as much as possible with Mossad veterans and younger Mossad agents or members. Or yes, you know, what's funny is that Israelis who are so kind of protective of the Mossad thought that the film kind of portrayed the Mossad is not as efficient as they would want to portray the Mossad. You know, mistakes that the Mossad agents does, and all this mess up towards the end. You know, they kind of say, "How could you portray the Mossad this way?" You know, our Mossad, our, you know, whatever. So, but that's part of what the film is dealing with. You know, is like these people who do not want to kind of let go of old, you know, ideas and concepts. Yeah.
Because we're having this conversation on the day that President Bush has appointed the new super spy, the guy who's supposed to be the head of all the spy intelligence agencies in this country. And America, of course, has gone through all this agonizing reappraisal about the efficacy of our intelligence agencies, thinking that they're more bumbling than they are efficient or ruthless in any way. And it's interesting to notice a small country that has a very, very efficient intelligence.
Well, you know, that is something, you know, that if you care about intelligence services, or you know, so that's something that the Mossad was always, you know, considered one of the best, you know, agencies. Is that how you call it? In the world, it was always the Israeli Mossad. You know, it's like, but the film is actually trying to say that, you know, there's a lot of problems within the Mossad and the difficulties, and the Mossad agents themselves are kind of difficult people who need a lot of help to change, you know. Yeah.
One of the other fascinating things I've noticed as I've been following the films at Berlin and beyond, and I've become aware of a young German actor, Daniel Bruhl, who's been in a number of things, Goodbye Lenin, as well as The Educators. And the young actor, is it Knut Berger that you get for this, is another example of a new generation of German actors who are amazingly charismatic and sensitive, and dispel all previous stereotypes of the German male. Talk a little bit about this particular actor and his conception audition for the role of the young man, Axel, which I think is a crucial thing to juxtapose against the Mossad agent, the more masculine butch guy. He encounters a very different kind of man, not only a German man, but a very different kind of young man.
Well, that is, what I was looking for, that man that you describe. And when Knut came into the room, when I went to Germany and I met many actors and actresses. When he came into the room, he came on his bike. He was all kind of excited because his sister just had her first baby or whatever. And he was telling me about it, and his eyes were lit up. And it was, I said, "Oh, you're the character. I mean, exactly that energy, exactly that, personality." And that came from an experience that I had as a 7-year-old. I was, I should not say this on camera, but I was a member of this Israeli dance troupe, Israeli folk dancing troupe. And when I was 17, and at some point the instructor came and said, "We're going to perform in Germany." And we were, of course, very excited because we're going to perform abroad. That means we're very good or whatever. But we were afraid of going to Germany. Really, we thought we'd meet all these young people that we would meet would be blonde, tall, humorless, bad people, cruel people. And we stayed with families of youngsters. That was the plan. And we met people who were unbelievably sweet and so different than us Israelis. We were tough and kind of harsh, and they were these sweet, nice, environmentally aware and socially aware and politically progressive people, and that struck me as something so strange, because we were, educated to believe that they were these certain kind of people. And suddenly I meet all these other kind of Germans. So wonderful, and that started me that was another kind of place I was coming from. And when Knut came in, he was exactly like one of the guys that I kind of really fell for when I was 17 years when I was then, and yeah.
One of the things I noticed with Knut and with Daniel in his films is that in some respects, the Israelis and Germans have exchanged identities. It's very funny. And now that the Germans have been disarmed essentially for 50 years and the Israelis have been armed to the teeth for 50 years, it's odd how this has produced young generations now, 2 or 3 generations down the road, that have entirely opposite characteristics.
So that was part of what we were trying to do in the film, is to show kind of how histories are this kind of play this tricky game, or kind of we've gone through one process, they've gone through supposedly the opposite process, where we were the victims and we were weak and Jews, and now you have this character who's a tough, macho warrior killer, and on the other side you have Axel, the German character. His parents and grandparents, were the epitome of evil, his grandparents, and he is this sweet, almost too good to be true person, man. And yeah, it was if to the extent to talking about Leo, let's say his character, Eyal's character, let's say, and Leo, but you
Also, another scene I loved is the Israeli gay bar scene where Axel takes him to the gay bar, and he picks up this Arab guy almost immediately, and it's not only is the Israeli guy shocked by the gay bar, but then the German and the Arab are going off with each other.
Well, first of all, Tel Aviv is that's another strange thing about Israel. It's full of contradictions. You have a lot of men like Eyal, and then you have all this, amazingly open nightlife and gay scene in Tel Aviv, and so it's strange. Israel is a strange place. You try to figure out how these things work together. This closeness or this kind of fear of whoever's different, or fear of the other, whoever he might be, and then again the other side, this need or this wish to change and to open up and to become more normal. Normal being more accepting of the other, more loving of the other, more. So yes, we were trying to show like this life in Tel Aviv, you know, and Eyal being a person who's disconnected of that life, you know, and suddenly he's exposed through the German to what's going on in Tel Aviv, and he is shocked, and he is frightened, and he's jealous, and he's many things that's are going on there. It's not only that this guy is gay. He's also fooling around with a Palestinian, you know, that might be a terrorist, or, you know. So all these fears are bubbling inside of our Israeli character. Yeah.
Another thing I noticed, there's a small documentary film called The Garden, which deals with a Palestinian gay kid and an Israeli Arab kid who bond with each other as hustlers in this neighborhood. And the Israeli is named Dudu, and I want to develop this crush on him. But I realized that these Arab gay kids are a product of Israeli society, of Israeli secular society. They literally would fear for their lives if they went back to their communities on the West Bank. It's really odd that this is becoming the bridge between one of the bridges between the two worlds. Is this gay world?
Well, yes. They are, you know, in a minority within a minority, with, you know, and it's and you know, there are these places where people kind of minorities meet and bond. There's this bonding between these people. But our next film has to do with all these issues. So it's about a relationship between a young Israeli man and a young Palestinian man, and how difficult that is. And, you know,
what's that film going to be called?
The working title is The Bubble, which is a term used by Israelis to describe life in Tel Aviv. Life in the big city, which is like supposedly we've created this bubble, this escapist kind of lifestyle or world where we supposedly don't know anything about politics or what's going on in Israel, what's going on in the Middle East, and we only care about, you know, our nightclubs, our espresso bars, our whatever, our fashionable whatever. It's of course, I don't think that's the exact truth, but there is something to it, you know, but yeah, but we're going to try to, you know, show how that bubble explodes. Yeah.
One of the things I liked is you have your two main male characters going to, I believe, is the Dead Sea? Is it where the salt? It's like the Salt Lake City, where they can literally float, and the whole, of course, walk on water thing comes from that. And I thought it was very fascinating that the young German immediately wanted to walk on water.
Yeah, I mean, the German kind of, he fools around with the concept of walking on water. You know, he doesn't take it very seriously, I think. Well, no, in the original script, it was more like he's saying, well, if Jesus could do this, I can do this too, and he's fooling around with the concept of walking on water. And Eyal, of course, says, you're crazy, the Israeli character. He's very cynical about the idea of walking on water, you know. You can't walk on water, and so on. And, you know, and by the end of the film, we shouldn't be saying this, but he opens up to the idea of people, or men, metaphorically speaking, being able to walk on water and to come to a stage where they are, you know, good enough people to be able to walk on water. Something like that.
I understand your original idea for the film was to have it shot in several German cities, and you had to scale that down to Berlin. But talk about what you originally wanted to do.
Well, you know, Gal and me, researching before the film, we did this big tour of Germany, which was just fascinating, you know, and we thought maybe that should be, you know, what happens to our characters as well. You know, just like Eyal takes Axel through Israel, we thought Axel should kind of start, you know, should be the driver and take him through Germany. But I think it's good that he just, you know, takes him around his city, Berlin, nightlife in Berlin, and all kinds of things in Berlin. Then to Wannsee, to the lake where his family live, and where, you know, a lot of our history is connected to Wannsee and stuff. Yeah.
Also, you know, I noticed you get the young Arab character that Axel tricks with to deliver part of the director's message about how the Israelis should loosen up a bit. It's kind of interesting. There's that little confrontation there after the Israeli guy had been particularly nasty, you know, particularly obnoxious in a way that I think it is culturally very specific, and it comes out of the tensions between the two peoples.
Well, yes, the Palestinian in a very, I think, delicate and controlled way, says to the Israeli who has behaved, as you said, very abusively towards him, very aggressively towards him, says to him, you know, you Jews, he says, you know, you're so obsessed by your past, you're so not willing to overcome your past and let go of your past, and you've become emotional cripples. You've become blind. You do not see how you behave and how you're, you know, behaving now to other people. You're so, you know, obsessed by protecting yourself, by surviving, by all these things, and you're not seeing what you're doing to other people. Of course, he's referring to himself and his people, to the Palestinians. And that's part of what, you know, like an idea or an area that we're trying to kind of talk about or deal with.
It's interesting because there's a parallel track which also pops up in another movie, the other movie that Daniel Bruhl is in called The Educators. He and his friends are behaving like a kind of urban terrorist group, and in the course of and part of the plot is they meet a guy, they kidnap this millionaire who is actually part of the Baader Meinhof scene himself, so it becomes a kind of urban terrorist nostalgia where these kids learn the history that they were ignorant of, that they're actually trying to imitate. And in a certain sense, Axel is in that same situation. He's very ignorant of his history, of German history and of his own family's history, whereas his Israeli counterpart is a little too aware of some of these things. And it's interesting how history affects how these men work.
Yes, you know, part of what we were trying to show is, you know, how history affects, you know, the way people, you know, behave, the way young people behave today, even if some of them are saying we don't care about history. And that's what a lot of people said to us when we were starting to work on the film, producers in Israel and Germany. Young people would not want to see this film. They don't care about their histories. They don't know anything about their histories. I don't think that's true. I mean, maybe a lot of them are you know, don't want to deal with their history or are tired of dealing with their history and just want to, you know, be young, party, and enjoy themselves. But of course they are affected by their histories in many ways. Just their relationship with their parents and grandparents is in many ways dealing with their histories, you know. And that's something that they do if they want, or if they don't want, they're dealing with their parents, you know, and grandparents. And I think both kind of characters affect each other in a way where, you know, I don't want to give it, I don't want to talk about the ending, but, you know, one of them, you know, they both change and affect each other in a way where, you know, in a way which of course has to do with their, you know, history and their connection to their history. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the contrasting acting styles, because the young German man, Knut Berger, seems to really be very loose, improvisational and everything. He seems to be a very free spirit on screen as well as his character. Talk a little bit about what it was like to work with these two actors who are so different.
Well, you know, I'm happy that you think, you know, it was the fact that they are different people. I mean, I think that's a wonderful compliment for the film and for their acting. But basically, you know, they created characters. It's true that, and I insist on that as a film director or as a casting, you know, director, that I want, you know, the actors to be as close as possible as people to the characters that they eventually will have to portray. So it's true that Eyal, Leo Ashkenazi is closer to Eyal, and Knut Berger is closer to Axel. But they created characters, and both, I think, did a very good job, and I'm very happy with their achievements. But we worked together on creating these characters. Leo Ashkenazi, let's say, for example, he's like the biggest star in Israel today. You know, I don't know if you've seen Late Marriage, which is a film that he starred in, and which is a film that kind of went out of Israel and was shown in Cannes Film Festival and was distributed in Europe and had some kind of distribution here in the States. He's the biggest star in Israel today, and he usually does this, you know, macho Israeli army officer, policeman, Mossad agent. You know, it's not the first time that he does a Mossad agent. I know him. We've become very close now. I know that he's more the Eyal of the end of the film after he's changed than the Eyal of the beginning of the film. But you know, but he knew that he had to be this kind of tough, restrained, man. And but what happened with him, by the way, with the PR or the whole coming out of the film, he did amazing things. He's usually this, big main star in his mainstream star in Israel, which says nothing when he does interviews. He only says the most, nice, pleasant things that no one could be upset with him, or no one could be aggravated with him. And when the film came out, he did two wonderful things, amazing things. One is that he was talking about the whole, homosexual thing, and he was saying that he, as a younger man, had a relationship with a man, and that was wonderful for him, and that he's happy he had it. After it was finished, he realized that he was a man that had to be with women or wanted to be with women, but that was a wonderful thing. He's not sad about having that and whatever. And this is, like the Israeli Tom Cruise, And then, on the other hand, he was talking about his experiences in the first Intifada in the Israeli army, and said how he did terrible things in the Intifada, really terrible things, and how ashamed he is, and how depressed he became from that, and how he, for years, walked around with this terrible, terrible feeling and guilt feeling inside of him. And people were writing in on, on internet, how terrible that it is that he talks about these things, and he's a traitor, and so on and so on. Other people were saying, it's wonderful that you've been, talking and exposing all these things. And he also, on the cover of Time Out Tel Aviv, he wanted to pose with me, and he was nude and hugging me naked, him being this big, straight star in Israel, me being this well-known gay director. And it was like he was saying, yeah, but of course, we're friends, we work together, this is part of what the film is about, and I'm not afraid to do this. It was wonderful. I was so proud of him and of, like, what he was doing to promote the film. And
Newt Berger apparently was very popular over in Israel. He fit into the culture very well. Talk a little bit about his interaction there.
Okay. Should we open the door? No. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm making you do this because I. Okay. Okay. Well, Knut really enjoyed Israel, and people enjoyed him in Israel, and it's interesting, like how Israelis were so impressed by Knut Berger, and Germans or Europeans were so impressed by Leo Ashkenazi. So it's interesting how you're attracted to something that is different than you and opposite from you, and so on. Sometimes. For Knut, and Carolina, the actress, I think it was a very interesting and significant experience to come to Israel and to work in Israel. For both of them, it was the first time in Israel. Carolina was interviewed by this television program in Israel, and when the young MTV-style journalist was talking to her, saying, "So tell me, how are you connected to this film?" Suddenly she said, "Well, my grandfather was a famous Nazi," and all of us were, because we didn't really know this, and to what extent, and he was a high-ranking Nazi officer, and this is a skeleton that is supposedly in our family's closet, and we never really dealt with it. And now that her mother was sick and she was doing this film, we've started to deal with this as a family and to talk about it. And coming to Israel was very difficult for her. In the first days, she was like very nervous, and she was walking down the street, and suddenly I saw her walking we said, "Let's go to the other, sidewalk." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Because I don't feel comfortable. Suddenly I see these old people walking down the street." It was really an interesting experience, Yeah.
Before we close, since we are at a place where Sharon is talking to the new Palestinian leader, and who has declared that he thinks essentially the armed conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis is over. That was a few days ago in the New York Times. Talk about, as somebody on the old New Left, the peace movement, what you think about the situation that your country is in right now as we talk, at this particular point in February of 2005.
Well, I can only be very hopeful, and hope that this is a beginning of something, good that will happen to Israel. It's very difficult for me to believe that Sharon would be the person to bring us to a state of peace, or to to some kind of peaceful solution with the Palestinians. But then again, Begin, who was from the same party as Sharon and was a very right-wing man of war, he's the one who made peace with Anwar Sadat and with Egypt. And then people can change. Yitzhak Rabin is a wonderful example of a person who was really a person of war and a hero of war, and he managed to become a person of peace and a man of peace. You know, and that's part of what happens in Walk on Water as well. You know, people were asking me, do you really believe that this character, this macho Israeli man, can change that way and become a man of peace? And I said, you know, in Europe just now, you know, I do believe that Israeli men can change and become men of peace. And I have to say that about Sharon as well, you know, and about, you know, Sharon and Abu Mazen and our reality as well, you know, to hope that these people who grew up and were educated in war and have war inside of them can hopefully, you know, solve that and solve that within them and with each other, yeah, and hopefully we're heading towards a better period.
And finally, do you think some people feel here that the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, you know, a decade ago really put things back a decade, that this all may have happened sooner had Rabin lived?
Yes, I do think so. I do agree with people who think so, and that's what's so tragic about it. You know, you say, you know, supposedly, you know, you think that if the assassination did not happen, you know, all these victims of war, Israelis, Palestinians, would not have to, you know, be victims of war. They would be alive and they'd be part of a new reality. And but I don't know. I guess that's not how things work, you know, in history and in life. You know, this is how things worked, and I just have to say that I'm very happy and hopeful about, you know, our future. That's all I can say. You know, we've gone through terrible years, really terrible years, and a lot of sadness and depression in Israel, amongst Palestinians, of course, amongst young Israelis, you know, feeling very bad about what is going on and, you know, wanting to change and hoping for change. And now there's something that seems like a beginning of something, you know. Yeah. Thank you.